What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide, and welcome back to another episode of the Guides Network. And today we're going to give you 2 pro level tips that nobody talks about, but you really need to know. My man David Ozio is going to help us out today. We've got a couple different pro level tips. The first one later I'm going to teach you guys how to save a bunch of money, because after David's done, I'm going to show you guys how to get just about any weedless bait unhung without having to go over and run your spot and without losing your bait. So we're going to save you some money on getting baits unhung in a way I bet you've never seen before. Right now, David, what are you going to talk about?
We're going to talk about something that is a severe need to know. Every day that I guide, I watch this happen with the people that I take out in order to have a great day, and how they handle the fish once they get hooked. Once the fish gets hooked, and what they do and how many they lose. And there's a strategy to this that is ever so critical. And so today I want to walk you through the best technique in order to boat more of those fish without them jumping off, without losing them, so and so.
Because how many people as guides do we see lose the fish of their lifetime just because they don't understand the fundamentals of fighting a fish?
Yeah,
right.
And the fundamentals,
and it never gets taught. Nobody ever talks about it on YouTube. Like, you don't see social media content about how do you reel a fish to the boat. Like, you just don't see that. So that's why we wanted to do that today, because we thought it was something, A, you can't find a lot of advice on out there, but B, it's something so critical, because we see as fishing guides, so many people end up losing the fish of their lifetime, their personal best, because they just don't understand the fundamentals of fighting fish.
And there's an advanced level to that people don't even recognize or even understand, or say, wow, I didn't even know that, you know. And watching what the line does after you hook the fish, you can tell way before a fish breaches if he's coming up. And most of the time, which I'm going to explain, is what you're looking for whenever that happens.
Well, let's get into all the details, teach you guys how to keep your fish hooked up, then later we'll teach you how to get your baits unhung.
All right, girls and boys, tip of the day, the pro tip of the day. It's something that I see on a regular basis whenever I'm guiding. I get people that come up and they're saltwater anglers. They've fished steelhead. They've done all kinds of different things. Now they want to catch some bass. And one common denominator amongst all of these people is how they handle the fish once they get them hooked. And bass is a very unusual creature, all right? He has a head shake unlike most any other fish you've ever seen. And constantly people are losing fish and wondering why. I'm gonna give you one good idea why. Let's say, for example, we're throwing a chatterbait, all right? And this is a 1/2 ounce chatterbait. When that fish is hooked, all right, that with that violent head shake, there's this 1/2 ounce weight that's right in front of the fish's mouth. That head shake will actually wallow the hole out just a little bit, and that violent head shake will manage to make that hook pop right out. And why? Because the lever is the 1/2 ounce weight, and boom, it throws it right out. It can only do it on slack line, all right? Most of the time I see most of the clients, and they'll set the hook on a fish, or they'll just start reeling. They've got a fish in, and the number one mistake they make is that they'll end up dropping the rod tip right back towards the fish, and that slacks the line up enough. That fish senses it, and what do you think happens? Shakes the head, lever, throws the hook out. So my goal today is I want to give you an idea how to avoid this disaster, all right? And there is an advanced level to this, of course, and I know for a fact that no one has ever taught you this, all right? And it lies in with the fact that whenever you hook that fish and you're starting to reel him, you've more than likely got the rod up. Watch the line, all right? You can see the line as this fish, you follow it from the tip of the rod down to the water level, and you will see that line going further and further and further out. That means that the fish is coming up, all right? And a bass will come up and breach. When he breaches, he does that violent head shake. Nine times out of 100, that's when you throw this. And the secret to that is what you do with the rod tip, which I'm going to show you here shortly. Basically, what you do is that on these long casts like that, when you see that line rising, you set the hook. If the line's coming up, you stick the rod tip down towards the water, if not in the water. And I'm sure that you're going to see some shots today that we shot where you're going to see exactly that I did that whenever I saw the line rising. And the one key thing with this is that when you see that line rising, you're going to go, you don't want to make the rod go forward and down. You want to go down to the side, keeping the bend in the rod just like this. You want that rod bend to stay loaded up just like this, and then you roll it to the side into the water is what you do. Now, when that fish is up, you're down. When the fish is down, you're up. You can do that. Just watch the line. All right, so the biggest problem that I see with most of the anglers is how to go about this routine in order to manage this fish. And that's what you're after, managing the fish. So you're reeling this chatterbait along like this, all of a sudden, wham, you feel him hit it, boom. This is what you do. You set the hook. This is a mistake that the clients will always make. They'll move the rod right back here. They assume the fish is already hooked, and so it's in his mouth, it's not going anywhere. Couldn't be the bigger fallacy ever in the world in the belief of that. And what I see a lot of customers do is they've been saltwater fishing, they've learned to pump the rod like this. And that is a bad no-no with bass fishing. You do not want to pump the rod. So today, what I want to teach you is the exact way that you need to do this in order to manage, keyword, manage this fish after he strikes the bait, and then to get him in the boat. All right, so let me make another cast here. We're going to show you exactly what you need to do. Okay. We're reeling this thing along like this, and usually with a chatterbait, I'm going to hold the rod tip down a little bit, but it's all depends on what it's contacted on the bottom. But I get a strike. Set the hook, and you've got time after that fish is on there. See, notice I did not move the rod back forward. Grab the reel handle, start reeling. And the bow in the rod is right there. I never moved the rod forward. All right, now I'm watching the line. If I see that line coming up, I'm going to drop the rod tip down into the water until he breaches. Once he goes down, I'm going to come back up. And then I can manage the fish as he gets closer to the boat. If I see this line getting longer and longer as it gets closer to the boat, what am I going to do? I'm still going to keep the rod down lower. All right. So you've got leverage on the fish whenever you've got the big tension in the bow in the rod, and you want to keep that tension in there and not lose it with slack. All right, once you get the fish close to the boat now, you always want to keep the rod bowed. Now, whether you're going to boat flip him like this or you've got somebody with the net, all right, you always want to keep the rod loaded up. Key term today, loaded up. Keep that rod tip in full bend so that your fishing partner with you, or if you're going to boat flip him, can get down there and net that fish. It is, I can't even express how critical this is, and we do this in tournaments because we fish a lot of tournaments. I fish a lot of high-level tournaments, and every fish that goes in the boat is going to help me to cash a check, if not win the tournament. And so critical is critical, and I don't know, you can go research, and I don't think anybody's ever told you this. So if you ever learn anything, and I actually also too, let me preface back, when people come with me on a guide trip, this is one of the things that I teach them. I watch how they manage the fish, I watch how they set the hook, I watch how they play the fish overall, and invariably a client's going to lose 4, 5, 6, 8 fish a lot of times because of what I mentioned, the aforementioned. So whenever I get them to keep the load on the rod, it's amazing how many more fish they boat. And the one thing that none of them knew about is what you do with the rod tip once you've got that fish on and when that fish jumps. In the summertime and in the early fall, the fish are going to be more active. They're going to jump more. All right, it's that simple. All right, and this is where this really comes in. When you're in the wintertime, January, February, those fish don't jump nearly as much. They fight all right, but they almost never breach. So you don't have to worry about it as much during January, February. But any other time of the year, that's going to keep a 10-pounder on for you. So if you've learned anything today, keep the tension in the rod and do not drop the rod tip back towards the fish at all costs. And I just promise you that if you practice this, next time you go fishing, that you will boat more fish. And you're only going to see this on your Lake Fork guide.
All right, David covered that really well. I want to give you guys one visual aid in what he was talking about keeping the bend in the rod. This is something I show all my customers, just like Dave's talking about. If that rod is bent and this is my hand is the fish's head, and that fish shakes his head, my rod stays tight, right? If I let that rod go to where it's not bent very much and that fish shakes his head, now the line's slack. See that? And that bass can shake his head that far very easily, not even a very big bass. The line seems like it's tight, but I shake my head a little bit, all of a sudden it's not tight. It's really important to keep as much bend in that rod like David was teaching y'all. And I just wanted to give y'all that visual aid, because now when I shake my head, I don't care if I'm a 10 pounder, I can't get that line loose if my rod's really bent. All right, now I want to talk to you guys about a technique for getting your bait unhung that I've really never seen too many people, I don't really know if I've seen anybody talk about it, but it works extremely well for weedless baits. It really also works well for chatter baits and crank baits. It works really good. It's like a much better way to try and get your baits unhung. First, let's go over what happens when a bait gets hung up. When you're dealing with any type of a weedless bait, a jig, a shaky head, a Texas rig, a swim bait that's weedless, I mean any type of weedless bait that you can throw, 99.9% of the time, that bait is wedged in a V somewhere, a V of a tree like the one we got sitting out here, where two rocks come together. It's just wedged in a V, and you're pulling on one angle and it's stuck. And if you can somehow get that jig head to change angles, it'll then slide right through there just like that. And I know I'm covering that up, I'm not showing it very well, but it'll be stuck in here a certain way, right? It's just stuck in that crevice. We'll change the angle, then all of a sudden it'll just slide right through. All you got to do is get the head to roll around and get you a different angle, and that's why this technique is so effective. Now I'm going to try, there's a little bush out here, I'm going to try to hang this jig up if I can. It's a 6-cent hybrid jig, so I might not be able to hang it up, to be honest with y'all. All right guys, so my jig is hung up in that tree. Pan over to that tree, Dave, show them that tree. My jig is hung up, see my line going, my jig's hung up right there. Let's come back over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip a little line out, lift my rod, and I'm going to actually grab my main line here, and I'm going to grab the main line with my rod hand. I'm then going to put a little bit of slack in my line, and I'm just going to pluck slack. You're not trying to slingshot this to get it out. You just want to pluck the slack, and that's going to make that head flip around into different positions, and then it's going to slide right out. Watch this. Right through there. I mean, it works almost every time. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of dollars in jigs that has saved me, but the key, I don't know if I'll hang it up again. It took me about 10 times throwing at that tree to hang it up. But the key is to get that line in your rod hand and get some slack. Don't have it on a tight line. Oh, I'm hung up. Oh, no, it came out. Don't have it on a tight line. You want to have a little bit of slack in there. You have a little bit of slack in that line when you go to pluck it. That's going to allow that head of that jig or Texas rig or swim bait or whatever it is that you got in there, any type of weedless bait, it's going to allow that head to flip positions and flop around, get you a different angle, then you pull and it slides right out. I mean, that jig was hung in there that first time, and I plucked it a few times and it slid right through. All it does is change the head position, allows the bait to roll right through there. Now, if I've got a crankbait hung up, I'm going to use the same technique, but I'm going to make a little bit of an adjustment. Okay, crankbait's hung up on the tree right there. I'm going to do the same thing, but on this one I want my line to be not all the way tight. I want a little slack, but I am actually going to pop this line a little bit with a treble hook bait. If it's an open hook bait, a chatter bait, a jig head swim bait with an open top hook, it can be the hook when it's that. So you need a little more line tension to kind of pop that hook out of the wood, because like right now I can see my crankbait at this tree right on the surface. It's the hook that's in the tree 9 times out of 10 with a crankbait or something of that sort. So I'm actually going to take and do it like this right here. And now this isn't going to be as effective for your crankbaits as it is for your jigs, but a lot of times it's going to get that crankbait to come out, change that hook angle, make that hook shake loose a little bit, and then guess what? Here comes your crankbait right back to the boat every time. I mean, you still say hung up once in a while, but you're going to save a whole bunch of money, and you're not going to have to get on top of that tree and run that fish that you're fishing for off of that tree, right? Or brush pile, whatever it is that you're hung up on. So works in all depths, works in all distances. It's a little bit tougher when the wind's blowing really hard, but it's still effective, just not as effective when you have extreme winds. But man, that tip right there, y'all learn that one and hold on to it. fairly quick Guides Network episode today, but maybe the most valuable episode that we've ever done on the Guides Network. Because one, the one I just gave you is going to save you a bunch of money, save you a bunch of baits. Two, the one David gave you is going to save you a bunch of heartache from losing big fish.
Losing big fish. Now, the most important thing is our goal is to make you a better fisherman and help you to land more fish. That's the whole gist. All the tips and tricks that we do out here, I mean, are easily transferred to you, and it's just application after that.
That's right, absolutely. And it's what we've always stood for from the day one of this channel. When we set out and started doing videos every week, I had one thing in mind that I want to do. We're going to be about two things: loving our fellow man and helping each other catch more and bigger fish. That's all that matters. That's my whole life's goal in what I do for a living out here on the water. And so these videos are just another way to do it. David, thank you so much for helping us do that, brother.
Young man, thank you.
Awesome. Y'all go check us out at yourlakefortguide.com. Man's got 35 plus years experience. Get in the guide boat with him. Go take a guide trip with David. Go take a guide trip with me or any of our other awesome guys that you can find info on at yourlakefortguide.com. We would love to share some more knowledge and help you guys catch more and bigger fish, maybe even a personal best that you might keep hooked up if David teaches you how to do it. Hey, thank you guys for watching. As always, man, we will see you guys next time right here
on your Lake Fork Guide.
I like that. Went a little soft. You couldn't just do it the same every time. It has to be a different. I like it.